They thought I was just the quiet old man in the back row, hands folded, suit a little outdated. What they didn't know was that I controlled assets worth $95 million. And on my son's wedding day, I decided to keep that secret, just to see who would treat me with respect when they believed I had nothing to offer. The wedding was stunning. Crystal lights, polished marble floors, the air smelled of roses and expensive perfume. My son, Daniel, stood at the altar, his eyes shining with pride, not tightened in my chest. I'd raised him alone after his mother passed, working long nights, teaching him that dignity mattered more than wealth. Ironically now, I was surrounded by wealth, but dignity was in short supply. I arrived early. The coordinator glanced at my simple invitation and pointed toward the back without a smile. "Family seating is closer to the front," she said, her tone flat. I just nodded and walked where she directed. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to observe. Guests started to arrive in waves designer suits, diamond necklaces, loud booming laughter. Most passed by without a second glance. A few offered polite, distant nods. Others looked straight through me, as if I were part of the furniture. I wondered how many of them measured a person's worth by labels and bank accounts. Then, Daniel's future in-laws arrived like royalty. His father-in-law, Richard, strode in, shaking hands with booming confidence. He didn't even acknowledge me until Daniel introduced us. "Dad, this is Richard," Daniel said warmly. Richard gave me a quick smile, his eyes flicking over my worn suit. "Nice to meet you," he said, already turning away to greet someone he deemed more impressive. I felt a sting of hurt, but not surprise. I'd seen this kind of behavior before, in boardrooms and at charity galas where respect follows money, not character. Still, seeing it on my son's wedding day, that hurt more than I expected. The ceremony began, and I focused on Daniel. As he said his vows, his voice trembled with emotion. I remembered teaching him how to ride a bike, how he cried when he scraped his knee, how he promised he'd always take care of me. Tears filled my eyes, and for a moment, nothing else mattered. At the reception, the divide became even clearer. The VIP tables near the stage were filled with champagne and laughter. I was seated at a table in the corner with distant relatives who barely knew Daniel. The waiter skipped our table twice before I had to gently raise my hand for service. When my glass was finally filled, the server didn't even meet my eyes. But then, something unexpected happened. A young woman approached our table. It was Daniel's bride, Emily, still glowing in her wedding dress. She pulled out the chair beside me and sat down. "You must be tired," she said softly. I realized we never really got a chance to talk. I smiled, genuinely touched by her kindness. "I'm just happy to see my son so happy," I told her. She nodded. "Daniel talks about you all the time. Says you taught him everything about honesty and patience." Her eyes were sincere. There was no curiosity about my status, no judgment, just pure, simple respect. We talked for several minutes about life, loss, and love. She actually listened. When she stood to leave, she squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she said, "for raising such a good man. That single moment made keeping my secret completely worth it." Later, Richard took the microphone for his toast. He spoke about success, ambition, and the powerful families now joined together. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Then he added with a laugh, "Of course, we all want the best for our children financially. Not everyone can provide that, but thankfully, Daniel is marrying into stability." I felt eyes flick toward me. A few people smiled awkwardly. Daniel stiffened beside his new wife, but said nothing. I placed my napkin down on the table, my heart pounding not with anger, but with absolute clarity. When it was my turn to speak, the room grew quiet. Some people looked bored, others just curious. I walked to the microphone. "I'm not a man of many words," I began.
Now.
I spent most of my life working quietly, raising my son alone. I taught him that respect costs nothing and kindness is priceless. Murmurs rippled through the room. I watched today, I continued, as some people treated others based on what they thought they had. And I watched others offer kindness without expecting a single thing in return. I paused, then smiled gently. Daniel once asked me what I would give him on his wedding day. I told him I'd give him the truth. I nodded to a man near the stage. He stood up and projected a series of documents onto a large screen behind Min investment portfolios, trust funds, charitable foundations. The numbers were impossible to ignore. "For years," I said, my voice steady. I kept my wealth private. $95 million to be exact. Not to impress anyone, but to protect what truly matters. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I won't say who disappointed me today, I said, looking around the room. They know who they are. But I will say this: respect should never, ever depend on money. And those who showed kindness when they thought I had nothing, they are the ones I trust with everything. I turned my gaze to Emily. You treated me like family before you knew anything about my finances. For that, you have my deepest respect and my blessing. Tears were streaming down Daniel's face as he rushed to hug me. Richard stood frozen, his jaw on the floor, all his confidence gone. That night didn't change who I was. But it changed how people saw me and, more importantly, how they saw themselves. Because true wealth isn't what you hide in bank accounts. It's how you treat people when you think they can offer you nothing at all. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more.